And people said Yummy couldn't perform still. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out more on us content. So we actually get to dive into the Peru National Championship out of this weekend. And this actually paints a very interesting picture on how the meta is shifting in other regions right now. Especially somehow with Yummy Fiendsmith managing to overcome the entire meta here and actually getting a major win. This is actually a pretty big upset for a lot of the meta because a lot of people just considered this deck to be dead. You know, that there was no point in actually considering this to be a real competitor. People were just writing it off, and out of the sunset comes probably one of the biggest upsets that I have seen in, analyzation of, current meta. We also had a Fairy Tale with Spenta and Friends, the Magus package, actually coming in here and doing overtime on the meta. I find this to be very interesting. This deck has had some major developments. It's been overcoming a lot of the craziness that today's meta has been showing, and honestly, I like that this is becoming such a great challenger within today's meta. Honestly, I do hope that more players will continue to analyze and, look at the Fairy Tale deck and actually give it a shot. Now, we also had Rizal on Mat, which somebody's going to be like, how is that deck still functioning? I don't know, but it performed. We also had two Doom Z decks, both placing one in top 4 and one in top 8. Which is kind of nice. I mean, this deck's been doing fine. We do get to see Branded still being kind of the standardized meta monster. And you also had Cool Tunes kind of bringing up the rear here as well. And then you had Enneacraft, which I think was one of the scarier decks that this event actually had, a chance to actually showcase. So, I mean, overall, looking at your top representation here, it's very crazy, but we have the entire top 8 to dig into, so let's pass on over to those deck lists. So actually winning our event was going to be Yummy Fiendsmith. Now this is actually a really cool change to the current meta because we still get to see why Wave King Kaiser is one of the most annoying modern metagame cards that you can still kind of see, but also, your Fiendsmith package is still just 2 engravers, you still have the Larry and of course the 1 Lacrima with the 1 track, so you're only building 5 cards into the main deck here to really kind of get a lot of the power that you need to be seeing with this, which is fine. You're also going to notice down here that we have the Yummy Trap card that's been seeing a lot more play. It just gives you a lot more control options to handle into certain matchups, which is kind of nice. We also get to see good old Reproducus being another little fun card that this deck has access to. But honestly, I'm not surprised to see that this deck performed out of the National Championship in Peru. All things considered, though, this is a pretty big W for the meta, so we'll see if Yummy sticks around. Next up, we have the Fairy Tale Spellcaster pile. This deck has been really innovated right now. I know a lot of players are just wanting to pick this up and just being able kind of play some of the fun little interactions that this deck actually brings with it, and I think it's doing just fine in order to, actually make some of these key play lines work. I do see that we are playing I believe it's the new Cosmo Queen effect monster in the side deck down here. That's kind of interesting. But in, standard stuff, you have the instant fusion to be able to help you out with some of the bigger play lines. Super polymerization is working in triplicate for this deck, man. Super Poly, I think, is probably one of the most broken cards that we have right now in the game. You obviously have to, fulfill using your opponent's monsters to basically create your own. But that scenario of having access to, the entirety of the board breaker to assist you is absolutely amazing. Next up is Doom Z, and this build is actually main decking a copy of the Illusion Gate. I suppose, like, in a situation where you go first, you can just Illusion Gate, board break your opponent, and then just win the game, because that's kind of just what Doom Z does, right? Its job is just to set up amazingly strong monsters and push through the game, and I think this deck is probably one of the scarier decks at just being able to do that. Now, obviously, the deck has access to merrymaker, because, you know, getting Sargass onto the field as your giant negate is what this deck wants to do. Actually, this deck thrives on getting that control aspect established so you can kind of play through things. This is also one of the few decks in the room right now that actually does want to play Shifter. You know, just being able to Shifter your opponent just puts them in such a bad situation. So, I mean, this deck's coverage is amazing when you actually get to look at things. Also, Magical Midfield Breakers also helping this deck out a lot. Next up, we get to see the Anamana Mat list. Now, honestly, looking at the main deck for this, there's nothing really spicy in this deck to really, you know, call this like a crazy innovation. You got 2/7 Tachyons, which I guess somebody might find a little bit weird that you're not maximizing on those, which is fine, but it's so very interesting just to look at like the turnover on this. Obviously, Ascantos is your boss monster of choice for this, which is really good. In the side deck, you do see Perulias. We have the Unbreakable Exceed Barrier as well in here, kind of assisting you and making sure that, you know, your build will be able to kind of overcome a lot of things. We also get to see the double Different Dimension Ground coming into play here. Different Dimension Ground is also one of those very crazy cards that, you know, the minute you shut your opponent off for turn, also you're playing 2, that way you can, you know, push into it off of thrust. We also do get to see the Anti-Spell Fragrance in here, absolutely doing its job, shutting out the opponent. Wonderful. We actually get to see some cool tunes. Now, I do see that this cool tune list is actually playing the Shooting Riser Dragon. It's kind of interesting. It is another tuner stepping stone for you to be able to kind of walk into, which is actually kind of nice. But I do see that we are playing triple Mind Crush. Oh my, I didn't actually expect to see the Mind Crush trend, you know, that Japan was trying when this deck first came out to actually come into our meta and actually do something. But if you know that your opponent is going to have a power card, or you know that there's going to be a situation where you could potentially get blown out by something, this is where, you know, the Mind Crush comes in. It's meant to give you a counterplay performance to make sure that, you know, you can actually kind of make sure that you can actually set up and do your thing. So I do like actually having the Mind Crush as a side deck tag. That's nice. Next up, we do get to see the standard branded deck, but yes, this branded player is playing double Harmonia in their deck. Now, you're going to be like, well, you know, don't we have to be careful with like doing fusion plays because of Harmonia? Why, yes. Yes, you do. But there is a world where this deck already is going to lock itself on its turn anyway with Nadir Servants. So you're just going to kind of rotate Blazing Cartesia, do fusion summons during the opponent's turn, and you're going to kind of navigate and play your deck underneath that premise. That's why this deck actually has been getting away with doing some of the stupid stuff that it's able to do, because, you know, you can already navigate setup a lot more correctly, and honestly, that's kind of funny. But that's why this deck is actually kind of turning into the annoyance that it is right now, is because players are figuring out, oh, hey, you know, we can navigate and set up, you know, the way we need to. Which brings us to good old Enneacraft. I love Vanity's Fiend Turbo, man. You want to talk about a deck that's just able to kind of ruin the opponent's day. I'm sad to see no Spia in here, but I understand. We are playing the double Subspace Battle, though. A lot of players have realized, oh, hey, what if we just build Subspace Battle into this deck? You know, you just end up getting 3 bodies tossed out onto the field, and then your opponent just kind of has to deal with the, you know, the little one revealing, and you're just setting up all the monsters into the opponent's turn. Unless your opponent's playing like multiple Nibirus, in a lot of your other situations, Subspace Battle is just going to get you so much more free advantage. Like, it's actually kind of crazy to know that, you know, Subspace Battle is just going to win you games. Also, shout outs to this extra deck, man. This extra deck is absolutely jank, but it gets the job done, I suppose. I do see we have Sphere Modes and Dimensional Fissures down here in the side deck as well, doing their job. And then we have Doomsy. Once again, I mean, this is pretty similar to the other list. You know, this build's playing the Triple Fawn and Virtuous. You need to be able to push through. You're not playing the Illusion Gate tech, which kind of a shame, actually, because I liked that a lot. obviously, you have a thrust on the side deck. You're playing Ultimate Slayers, kind of clean up some problems that the opponent's going to have. Looking at your extra deck, I mean, you have one of everything in here that you're going to, need to be able to use. Oh no, I sacrificed a combo piece, but it's not going to be enough to kind of put you behind. Actually, I think this deck's doing just fine with what it needs to do. So what do you guys think about the Peru Nationals? Leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here in the day, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.